All right, everyone. Hello, hello. It is that time again. It is noon on Saturday, and this is, of course, Readings with Rebecca. I've already had a great time chatting with everyone today in the chat over here. I was actually on top of things, which is kind of miraculous given the fact that I'm in the middle of flipping my schedule for the trail. My shakedown stuff begins on Monday, where I'm doing lots of, road hikes and living in my backyard and just acting like a general crazy person, as if the neighbors didn't need any more reasons to look at me funny. But that's alright, they're not going to be seeing me for a good long time here in a little while anyway. It's great to be here this week. You know, even amidst the schedule flipping and the running around and all of that, I found that I was actually really looking forward to being here today. I mean, not that it's like, oh God, I have to do another stream. No, I mean, even on the days where it's been just absolutely my world is on fire, this has always been a bright spot. But gosh, after last week, I mean, we really connected a little bit last week. It was powerful. I'm just really glad to be here. So, hi guys. Um we've got our regular crew currently in the stream. Finley's here, Damon's here, Allie's here, Maya, Bones, and Hot Sauce, our very own intern editors. They are here. It's really great to see everyone. Yeah, I've been getting teased that Readings with Rebecca is like a low key, support group by them, and I just kind of look at you side eye. I guess we have been getting kind of heavy, but I mean, it's not like Dawnbreak is shy about going there. Dawnbreak requires good self-care. Let's be honest, and communicating, talking, all of that, really good things. So yeah, here we are. How are you guys doing? Anything you guys want to talk about before we get into it? We're going to go at least through chapter 38 today, maybe chapter 39. There's even a chance we might see chapter 40, but that's probably pushing it. Oh my goodness, it just absolutely guts me. But remember, there is always hope. Just beyond the farthest star. After Starfall, which is the novel I am still currently writing, uh, the next book is titled Angels of Our Yesterday. And how interesting is that? Editing and general awful jokes, eh, Maya? Well, you're fulfilling your purpose. That's for dang sure. You're also one heck of a support. When Cat Luck joined, I had no idea how much better my work would get simply because I had her as a support. When Maya joined, it happened again. Um, I honestly do not believe that any creator is an island of their own creativity. The people like Maya and Kat, my wonderful husband and other partners, the people that I use for beta reading, Speedy 876 in Jamaica. It's just they have had such a powerful impact on my narrative, and it's so interesting because when I wrote Exile, I was very sensitive to criticism. I'm still sensitive to criticism. It's something that I'm honestly working on, but when I wrote Exile, it was like, no, this has to be my voice. This has to be my vision. And I have learned through my experience with just amazingly talented and intelligent people like Bones and Hot Sauce, like Kat, like my beta readers like Karen Williamson, who is also a patron Um, although because of her work schedule, she's rarely able to make these streams. And just all kinds of multi-talented people out there that my work got better. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the folk tale about stone soup, but writing to me is definitely a kind of stone soup. I would love for you to. In fact, all of our aspiring writers out there, if you've got something that you want to share, let's make the Dawnbreak chat, the Dawnbreak chat, the Studio Prey patrons chat, just a depository for your writings. I am so firmly committed to pushing people to write that want to write, because it's not about where you are in your career as a writer. It's the fact that you are writing. It's the fact that you are creating. Even the roughest work can be refined. And trust me, I know a little something something about rough works. Exile was such a freaking train wreck for like 3 editions before I got it really straightened out. And it took the commitment and love of multiple people to make it anywhere near what it is today. And so please, if you've written something, if you're proud of it, I don't care if it's the first thing you've ever written and it's as amateur night and as, error prone as anything, post it up. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it to the limits that you're comfortable with, because I know what it means to have the heart crushed out of you by someone, being too critical. And let's get out there. Let's create something together. Let's work together so that we have more voices sharing their unique point of view and their passions with the world. It's honestly can only lead to good things. Because writing at the end of the day is a dialogue, isn't it? It's a dialogue. It's a way of getting past those walls and barriers that we all have and really speaking to the heart and soul of a person. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so big on, oh, you're a writer? Please write. Share your stuff with me, because getting to the heart and soul of people, it's the only way that we can make connections. It's the way that we reduce hatred. It's the way that we increase our understanding. It's how we get towards the farthest star. Man, I am on fire today. I'm just going, 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 and that's exciting. Honestly, I've learned that with the inevitable and irreparable lag, that it's probably best for me just to go. And so here I am, a going, going, going. But the chat has gotten strangely quiet over here. So, oh, I'm very excited. Number one, I have had some sleep. Number two, I am about to start my shakedowns for the Pacific Crest Trail. Like I said, I'm going to be living in my backyard, out of my tent, basically living by trail rules, getting up at 5 o'clock every morning, having breakfast, breaking down camp, and trying to get on the road for a 15-mile round-trip hike by 6:30 every morning, hopefully home between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, in which I will set camp back up, come in, work until about 9 p.m., and then get up the next day and do it all over again. That's 5 days a week. The reason why I am embracing that crazy is so that all of my gear, all of my skills, everything that I really need to do for the trail is firmly ingrained in bunny brain by the time I set out from Campo on the 19th of March. Well, the 20th of March. I arrive on the 19th. The other part of it is that it's getting my body used to the fact that I'm going to be moving at least 15 miles a day most of the time for the next 7 months. It's time to go from the gym to the trail. So it's really exciting to be there. I'm just a little bit I'm just like a little bit away from my start date, just about a month, and so yeah, I'm really feeling pumped. On top of that all, Starfall's going well. I've gotten a great response from the Readings with Rebecca live streams, and it's just been absolutely great. I got new glasses. I love these cat eyes. I've been really eager to get on my stream today and just be like, I'm a fashion model. Um, hey, Chris is here. Let's see. I'm catching up now with the chat here in terms of original story. I'm so worried about cultural appropriation. Okay. Sleep is definitely good. Um, you know, uh, there is a scene in Ghost of the Nightmare Gods and Whispers Beyond the Veil that involves the Baron Samedi. Minor spoiler, but we're not going to talk too much about like what that god's role actually is in the story. And I am definitely an outsider to the Voodooan community. I am not left-hand path by any stretch of the imagination. Kat makes fun of me calling me the ultimate white lighter. But I too am very worried about how I depict culture in books because it's so easy to get these outside, very biased, often stereotypical representations of things like voodooan, like Asian culture, all of these other things. But that doesn't mean that you cannot respectfully engage with a culture not your own and put it into a story. And one of the great benefits that I had is that Kat knows people that are connected to the Voodooan community, and she put me in touch. And I actually, as part of my editing process, ran by my interactions, my understanding of the Baron, all of that with her to make certain that I was doing both the god and the community justice. Because if you're just using it as a trope just to move your own ideas, okay, yeah, that's where you're getting into appropriation. But if you're actually trying to show it for what it really is, that's what we call veneration. That's what we call having a discussion. That's what we call sharing your point of view respectfully, and that's how we connect, and that's how we engender understanding. And so I would really encourage you, sweetheart, to push forward, to read and research and learn as much as you can. Connect with somebody that's maybe in the Shinto if you can find them, or has a strong knowledge of Japanese culture if you can find them, and then go for it, because you're going to grow and your readers are going to grow if you do it with an attitude of respect. It's not appropriation if you're approaching it with respect and the gravity that it deserves. Travis is here. Great to see you, Travis. Chris, I think I've already said hi to you, but it's great to have you here too. We've got 10 people. That's a lot. That's actually an increase. We are on fire this week. Now, the thing is this link goes out to all of my patrons, and I hope that, my patrons are here, but I also share this link with people that are family. And so I never know fully who's going to be here. Patrons, of course, get all the love, but family gets all the love too. Special access. Well, you guys have been very patient listening to me to ramble on for over 15 minutes now, and so let's see here. Why don't we recap what we did, and if there's no questions, comments, concerns, or death threats, remember, please hold all death threats to the end of the stream, we'll get into this week's reading. But first, hey, water break. Yeah, and that's actually a skill that you have to learn. Taking criticism. It's a skill, ladies, gentlemen, and other beings. Seriously. It really, truly is. So, last week. Yeah, there we go. Keep count for me. Nega Mewtwo. She she's gonna keep my counter. But last week in Dawnbreak, of course, we lost the hope. And we are down to John. John, of course, did not take it well. To put it lightly, was, one could say that there was a fair bit of trauma generated from the loss of the hope. Um, I didn't take it well. I don't think anyone that's ever read Dawnbreak with any sort of heart has taken it too well. Um, but anyway, and now John, both to honor her memory and to distance themselves from the event and the person that they see themselves as, has embraced shifting, the change, and is planning on exiling themselves on Sentiok. John is lost in a sea of guilt. Well, Snow now, I guess, would be her name. And because Snow is out and about who she is and what she is. So, yeah, it's a good time to change those pronouns. So, John is now Snow. And she is embracing or facing what she's done in probably one of the more like self-annihilatory ways possible. She's very upset with herself, and there's not a lot of forgiveness for herself. So all right, good enough summary? I think so. Let's get into it, shall we? Hey, Nega. Nega, get ready to update the count. Water break. Yeah, exactly. What's interesting is I've gotten both responses, both negative and positive responses to what happened to Joyce. Now, everybody is kind of salty that she dies, but I've had people like set down the book and say, "I'm not even going to finish this. This is a terrible story. I can't believe that you did this. This was wrong. This was cruel." And that, okay, their feelings are valid. I disagree, but their feelings are valid. What I found very interesting though were people that told me that it was courageous, that it was real, and that they actually respected me as a writer for going there because it obviously hurts. Fiction can either be fiction can be an escape, but fiction can also be like a response. It can, like I said, it's about having a conversation, and we don't live in a perfect world. Good people that are often the best of us often come to very terrible ends through no fault of their own. I mean, think of the civil rights movement. Think about all of those people, those students that died to advance the cause of civil rights. All of the minorities, African Americans that died, that were unjustly imprisoned, that had the skin stripped off their bodies from water cannons and dogs. The Holocaust. People living in the concentration camps under Chinese communism. The the long storied history of the USSR and their persecution of minorities, homosexuals, all of that. I mean, bad things happen to good people. And part of fiction and part of writing, I think, is confronting those awful truths, those awful realities of our own existence, and giving us a way to face them and frame them and to come to terms with them and also to fight against them. Dawnbreak should be seen as a tale of what discrimination can do to a soul, what discrimination costs. And, it is a power, I'm hoping that it is a powerful argument against hatred in any form. Yeah, I do. And, thank you, Nega. Thank you very much. And I believe I do remember your response, and I think we cried together, Maya, if I remember right. But let's get into it. Chapter 33, Dawnbreak by Rebecca Mickley. Everything was changing. Some things were gone and others remained. Life had found a way to become even stranger. Mood swings. Oh, God, the mood swings. Joy to anger to despair, and then everything was suddenly beautiful again, competing with my grief, switching on and off like a light switch, leaving me with feelings akin to a type of emotional whiplash. 30 minutes weeping over a commercial about nursing homes. Fuck! Snow! Pull yourself together. A wave of nausea, followed by the inevitable vomiting, centered me. That's right, paperwork. That's what I was doing before being assaulted by the people selling the abandonment of relatives at affordable prices. They even had shuffleboard. Joy. My unwilling skeleton creaked as I shifted in my seat and got back to work. I had to get this in today. My first month had passed in a blur of sickness and grief, but as the changes manifested and the world around me slowly began to pull itself from the icy grip of winter, something began to live in me. I both loved and hated it. It was life. Joy. Every day I saw the hair a little more, and John a little less, but still the memories waited. Every night when I slept, I damned Joyce over and over again. Each morning I arose as one of the guilty. Only in my change did I find any redemption. A deep, burning anger that I had always known had died, faded, and gone silent. Its absence left a ringing in my soul that seemed to persist for days after the event happened. Ancient pains and agonies were slowly falling quiet as my body contorted violently in the throes of its changes. In all of the chaos and the pain, it began to separate me from my grief. Still foundational, like a cornerstone in my world, it became distant as new things grew from the barren soils of my soul. Life, brought to you by Shift Tech. A new shame, though, like the sting left over from the burn. I felt so unworthy of it all, of them and their legacy. Not just Joyce. The entire 248 had all pioneered and persevered while I watched and made excuses. Every night I wished for the chance to go back, just so I could die with them. A new ritual replacing the old prayers for change. Change had come, and far too late, but I had earned this curse, and it was now my duty to carry on. Booster! Booster! My bracelet vibrated, grabbing my cane. I hobbled my way into the kitchen and went through my rhythms. I was having considerable more locomotion problems than Joyce at this early stage. My hips and knees just did not want to function right anymore. Stopping to catch my breath from all the activity of movement, my tablet began to chime and vibrate again in the other room. No rest for the wicked. Hobbling back the other way, my skeleton protesting every movement, vaguely hunched, leaning over my cane, feeling closer to 90 than 30 in that moment, I took a deep breath and centered myself against the growing feelings of anxiety and panic as the rapid-fire events crashed around me. Paperwork, Booster alerts. My thoughts cascaded from one thing to another as my chest tightened. Easy, I said to myself. Easy. The world resolved again to sense around me as I checked the notification. Appointment reminder, courthouse, name change / tags, it read from my calendar. My eyes shifted down to the half-completed form and the rapidly dwindling time. Fuck. Setting down to work with shaky affect, I was making good progress when my tablet again erupted into a sea of noise, causing me to leap out of my spot. It was a regretted action immediately. Hips popped, knees popped, and feet popped as tiny, burning rivulets of pain raced up and down my lower skeleton, and I fell hard onto the ground. The tablet, now next to my head, was incessantly ringing, contributing to a headache. Remember, you deserve this, I reminded myself, and answered the call. Dawkins, I responded, half dead. Yes, this is Carolyn Myers, your real estate agent. We've got a bite on the cabin, but it has to be tomorrow. Can we do a showing then? She asked. It was getting down to crunch time. I only had a few weeks before the tank. Sooner really was better. The cabin was mostly empty, but still needed a cleaning, and in my state, that would take all night. If I didn't get sick. Mr. Dawkins, are you there? She asked. Yes, that'll be fine, I replied, committing to the impossible. Great, just make sure it's show ready. Presentation is everything, she reminded. My gaze fell to the open, emptied cabinets in the kitchen, the pile of trash in the corner, and the dust that seemed to be everywhere. Fuck. Oh, it will be just great, I assure you, I replied, damning myself. The line clicked and fell silent. Tears. They seemed to come constantly, a general tool of emotional expression. I wondered how much longer they would persist. The floor was hard and unforgiving, but supportive. Moreover, the numb burning in my skeleton made it vaguely comfortable. Just gonna lie here for a little bit. A flash of blackness ensued, then a piercing noise. Startling awake, I again jostled my abused frame. Appointment. Name change tags. 2 hours. I had lost more time. Dragging myself to my cane, I hoisted myself up to get ready. Chapter. So John is, well, Snow, she's suffering. And she's grieving, but she's starting to heal. I've often heard that you don't get over a death, you learn to live with its damage. And, I've lost people. And I really think that's true. And Snow she's learning to work with the damage. In a somewhat dysfunctional way, but she's trying. Joyce's voice color was cutting off during her change because she wasn't used to using it yet. And you see, a voice color, it connects through neural pathways, kind of reads it. You have to teach yourself to push through the collar, just like you have to kind of teach yourself to push through your larynx. And so when she first started with the voice collar, she didn't have the right neural pathways fully for it yet. The device hadn't learned how to fully read and map, and she hadn't learned how to fully push and map. And so until those pathways got ingrained, it took time. And also, yes, you're right, she was in a state of constant flux. Like, remember, not just her genetic code, but her brain was rewiring itself in more ways than one, which more things for the technology to catch up with. It's actually inspired by this experiment that they did with virtual reality, where people had to learn to maneuver a new limb, a tail, in virtual reality to complete a puzzle, and they could see it, and I think there was some type of feedback supplied to like a belt or something. But at first, I mean, it was very hit or miss, but after a week or two, they actually saw people's brains remapping themselves, and they were able to maneuver this tail in virtual space to complete tasks, which is just mind-boggling. But yeah, you can. The brain is remarkably plug and play. The matter of trouble is finding an interface port. Shift Tech makes that much easier. But all right, chapter 34. Water break. Another 2 weeks. More changes. Fur and whiskers, 60 pounds down, my eyes now brownish black, my ears pointed. I could no longer deny in any way that I was becoming a new creature. I felt like a new creature. At first it had seemed such an impossible conceit, but one morning, amidst the pain and the grief, I awoke, and there had not been that same dream. That same awful dream. No, that night there was a new dream of freedom, of joy, and I still yearned for it even now, hours after it had finished. Then I reflected on it by the firelight, as if I had suddenly, in some way, discovered sunrise after an eternity of night. Joyous, sweet rapture, wholeness, almost like I was experiencing these emotions for the first time, discovering them after a lifetime frozen in a block of ice. I felt a type of manic ecstasy, everything vibrating in truth and in love. I was overwhelmed with it and could not cry. The process too far along now, but I did not care. Everything. I had everything I had ever wanted right in front of me. The dream was so simple. A warm summer's day, a tall grassy field, thousands of scents, some inspiring hunger, others caution. Information came streaming in from my world from all corners. My whiskers twitched in subtle breeze, and there was the sound of songbirds in varying patches of volume and concentration, immersed and lost in tracking the million subtle beauties of the world. It felt good just to sit and watch everything, observe everything, revel in it all from quiet distance. And then, out of nowhere, the impulse to run. The thought of flying through the grass, stalks whipping by, striking my whiskers and making my muzzle twitch, darting in and out as paws tore into dirt, gaining and finding their traction. Elation. Freedom. No hope burning in the depths of space. That one thought had shattered the illusion, tainted it, sending it violently out of control, forcing me awake. My sheets were soaked. I was gasping. For all the sadness I had felt, for the first time the joy was stronger, which built unexpectedly into a tsunami of shame. It felt like such a sin to forget, even for a moment, but the relief was heaven sent, and desperately needed. Even its memory brought gasping, as if coming to fresh air, of finding life from the frozen, impossible abyss of death. The last 6 weeks a blur. Canes and voice callers, changing proportions and perspectives. The cabin was under contract and sold for all intents and purposes. Life had come and gone so fast. Life in many ways had begun again. Strange, reflective thoughts ensued. I shifted by the fire and the tags from my voice collar jingled some. My hips hurt constantly, and I could barely walk. A low strum of excitement rippled through my chest, keeping me at a high and manic edge. Tanking would commence tomorrow. I was supposed to be asleep, resting up for the 7 months of rest that awaited me. Instead, hot tea by the fire, my last night as anything close to human. I decided to keep vigil over the final hours, observing every second, when all I wanted was for those hours to melt away. Still recovering from that wonderful dream, it warred against my grief, which now lived at the edges. There was a growing comfort with the loss, not a resolution, not a patch, not a scar, just an acceptance of the hole left by her absence. It had all become familiar, part of the routine, and so new joys competed with the old pains that were what they were. As strange as it was, I just didn't feel like him anymore. I didn't know when it happened, but one day John existed as a type of connected shadow, as if I was the inheritor of his guilt and his sins. My purpose now was to carry it, to seek the redemption of our shared soul. Even before tanking, something new was emerging out of the cabin in the Kelowna woods. The time passed by like a slow agony. Memories of Joyce, bringing a kind of sad and mournful nostalgia. I pulled her otter plush close. It had been my constant companion through my shifts so far. It still smelled like her at the edges, my changes bringing that to a full and present awareness. Every time I held it, it was almost like she was there with me. Unbidden, her last words drifted across my memories. Don't let this kill you. Don't let this stop you. Remember me. For you, Joyce. For hope. A stubborn wave of fatigue washed over me. Warm by the fire, covered in a blanket, the world grew fuzzy at the edges as my head drifted down. Time passed. The sound of birds drifted vaguely at the edge of my awareness, and my eyes snapped open. The fire had died. My tea was cold. 2 hours had drifted by on the clock. Here the sun was rising. In a blur, the morning faded into familiar pains and rhythms as I drifted through them in a surreal fog. My transport would be here in half an hour. The realtor had the key. Before I knew it, I was back at United Earth Medical Center, standing in front of my tank. Voice caller, Dr. Andropov reminded. With fumbling pause in mid-shift, I struggled with the clasp. I got lucky and it gave way quickly. All right, Snow, up and on to the bed. He patted it with his left hand. It's the big day. I know. Will not take long, he said. I felt a vague pinprick, then another. The world began to get hazy. Drifty now. Is nice, though? He asked, but distant now. That strange cold numbness reading up from my arm, and then blackness. Deep, whole, and complete. Strange memories flitting by, a different life, a better life, the painful one growing further and further away. There was a field, a place to run, a place to graze. Freedom. Long days of hypervigilance, anxiety, one day a loud noise, a strange pain. However, briefly there was a new place, strange smells, acrid, bizarre, two-legged creatures that left food in blocks. Suddenly there was green grass again, a safer place, still Strange two-leggers with the food blocks. All is routine, all is well. Some of the two-leggers had rectangles that flashed with lights sometimes. Peace. Finally, peace. Sinking deeply into it, wanting nothing but that. Everything else was far and away. Run, graze, groom, sleep. Things that mattered. Rhythms, patterns, routines. Just be. Time passed. Seasons changed into strange memories. The sun rose, and with it an urgency, brightness, the world growing wider, building to a high crescendo. And here we are, chapter 35. Yeah, I was influenced greatly by my transition writing for the Morphics. My, yep, water break count 4. Negative Mewtwo, she is on top of it this week. But hope and change. Kind of what it's all about, isn't it? You guys having fun? You guys have any questions before we push on into chapter 35? We are moving along at a good clip this week. Oh, let's see here. Yes, actually. It's the same that we it's called feralism. Basically, she just kind of flipped into full-on hair mode. Kind of like what happened with Joyce a bit at the hotel earlier on as well. Because Joyce was much further integrated. She had to constantly keep her brain kind of going to not flip fully into otter mode. So feralism is a challenge that can happen if the higher functions of Morphics above 90% are not continually engaged. It is a consequence of the unique way that humans shift. I'm glad you're enjoying, Damon. It's really great to have everybody here. It really is. All right. Any other questions before we kick off to chapter 35? We've already done 2 this week. Amazing. Wow. Yeah, 2. With this, with Snow's change, I went a lot faster because we had already covered a lot of the dynamics of the shift with Joyce, and I didn't want to just write the book a second time with slightly longer ears and twitching whiskers. If you'll forgive the otter-based pun, we had bigger fish to fry. But anyway, chapter 35. My eyes snapped open in the tank. My left forepaw floated in my vision. Lines and wires were connected to me. I could feel a mask over my muzzle. The world strangely distorted by the viscous liquid I was floating in. A light beamed in from the top as someone gently lifted me out. Then the feeling of a warm, fluffy towel. Comfort. A nap for a moment. So tired. Ironic, considering I had just slept for 7 months. Snow? Snow? Dr. Andropov prodded, setting my collar down next to me. It was purple, and had my Morphic identifier tags. Slipping it on, it connected to the bots of my system. Everything about my body felt new, but also familiar. Flexing my squat forepaws, I reached out and dug into the fabric of the bed I was perched on, and pulled forward in a stretch. my hind paws pushing back as my back lengthened with a pop. "Are you okay?" he asked. Overwhelmed. It was crashing into me like waves. Everything tingled. I wanted nothing else but to run for the pure joy of it, the elation. A drive built in me, and I kicked in a high leap up off the bed and then twisted my body, landing back down on the end. The movement an expression of ecstasy. No more pain. No more lie. "It's not a dream," I reported. "No, not a dream at all. But we do need to have a discussion. I need you to focus, no. I'm a hare." The doctor rolled his eyes and smiled, having been down this road many times. "Lepus americanus. Huge hind paws." He sat down next to me on the bed. "Are you feeling okay? No issues? No neural glitches?" He checked. I feel incredible. Me for the first time. "Hi, Doc. It's nice to meet you again." It felt cheesy to say it that way, but I couldn't help it. A strange kind of happiness I had never known drove me to sentimentality. That moment I loved everything, felt joy for everything, and could feel nothing else in that moment. Freedom after a lifetime of darkness. Freedom after a lifetime of lies. I had done it. I'd become the hare. I was halfway through keeping my promises. "It's nice to meet you too, miss. Now, can you tell me your name?" he asked. "Snow Dawkins," I replied with pride. "And where are you?" "United Earth Medical Center." The scent gave it away as much as the decor. "Who's the chancellor?" he pushed. "Well, when I tanked it was Vicky Gomez, but she was in hot water. I figure general election has been called by now," I replied. He chuckled. "George Parker is the new one. You are fine. A few days in observation, and then you will be released." He patted my head and rose. In the corner was a small box with my belongings. My old clothes. They were no longer in any way made for my body or proportions. Now I was 1.2 meters long, if you counted my ears, and firmly a quadruped. There was no longer any place in my life for jogging pants. In a strange type of farewell ceremony, I dropped the old clothes in the trash bin and nosed into my bag. There was my new harness I had ordered, with its side bags attached, my tablet, and Joyce's otter plush. Joyce. An immediate feeling of guilt rammed its way into my happy world as the realization dawned that I had not thought of her to this point. The sense from the toy washed over me. I clung to it, holding it tighter, its presence and existence somehow granting me comfort for my grief. In some ways, it was like she was still here with me. Memories of her exuberance out of the tank. "Look at me! I'm an otter! I'm an otter!" In that moment, I would have given anything for just 5 more minutes with her. One last chance to show her I was free and keeping my promises. But even in a time of miracles, the most earnest prayers often go unanswered. Chapter 36. Hope beyond the horizon. For Snow. She can't forget, but she can't help but be happy at who she's become. She's in a strange kind of paradox. In some ways, it took Joyce dying for her to become herself. That doesn't mean that she's ever going to, be able to come fully to terms with the fact that Joyce died, but she's herself. Yeah, it's... Dawnbreak is a tragedy. It really is. It's a hopeful tragedy, but it's not a story with a very happy ending. And I'm not the biggest fan of happy endings. I don't really believe in happy endings. I believe in realistic endings. Kind of rambling. I lost my thought for a moment. I mean, anybody can find a book that's like, bad things happen. Sometimes a beloved character dies, and then at the end of it all, everything somehow works out, and they start to heal, and they start to move on, or whatever, and life goes on, and they have the house at the edge of the field, and the sun is rising, and the music plays, and roll credits, and yeah, it feels good. It's emotional junk food, but it's not real. Joyce's death was a seismic event in many ways that sent out shockwaves that rumble throughout the entirety of the Farthest Star Universe, stretching over 20 years after her death. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't times where the book ends on a positive note. There are some books coming up that in the Farthest Star Universe that do end on a very positive note. But that doesn't mean that what has happened hasn't happened. Right? And we have to frame in light of the past and the hope of the future. All right. Chapter 36. We'll do 2, maybe 3 more. Push to 38 or 39, I'm pretty sure. 2 days had passed, and I was about to be released from observation. My harness was on, causing hot spots in my fur. It proudly proclaimed my sentience for all to see. A familiar demon walked into my hospital room. The Admiral from my brief hearing on the Danube, now live and in person. "You've got a promise to keep, Lieutenant, and a ship to catch," he said, without preamble. I realized in that moment he had never introduced himself, not even on the ship. Just a vague specter of authority to make deals with or cajole. Scanning his uniform, I found his nameplate. McGregor. "Going to need a shuttle, or it's going to be awfully difficult." If he wanted to dance, we would dance. "What are you doing about that?" He shifted. Going direct." "For the last 7 months or so? Not much. Mainly sleeping," I replied, and drummed a hindpaw for emphasis. "The UEA is currently auctioning off some retrofitted models from the 2040s and 2050s. They may work for your purposes." He handed over a tablet. "This also has your packet for recertification. Everything you need." A retrofitted shuttle is not going to get me out to Sintiok alone. They had no gate drive. It would be an absurdly long trip. "Check your tablet, Lieutenant. You've got a spot as cargo on the Masamune in February. That's your deadline. February 16th. One way or another, you are going to be on the ship that day. I suggest you get ready, because this is the end of my involvement." He turned and walked out. "Oh, your concern is so overwhelming, I thought I'd ask you to dinner," I said, raising my voice through the collar some to make sure he heard me on his way out. Asshat. Waiting for my discharge papers, I pulled up the listing catalog he had left of UEA shuttles for sale. One in particular caught my eye. It was ancient, from 2040. A Deep Space Scout class Gen 1 shuttle. It had a relatively new fusion reactor, but was otherwise old as dirt, twice retrofitted, but a look at the interior showed the true appeal of the design. They built it as one big room with a small bathroom tucked into the back right corner of the ship. 2 bunks were set into the wall on one side, but the pilot seat and controls were all switches and joysticks. The shower, designed for microgravity, operated on a pool chain. The shuttle was Spartan, but it would be easy to modify for my challenges with human design. It was also tough as hell, overbuilt from an era when the paranoia of what might be out there and the potential distance from help dominated. Thus they were made for reliability and durability to the utter and unassailable limits of lowest bidder designs of its day. It seemed perfect until I checked the price. 85,000 credits? I only had 110, and that was after liquidating everything. Pulling out my own tablet from beside me, its more capable cousin, I ran some numbers. I needed food to get me out there. There would be registration fees. I needed some place to live or park it in the interim, as well as fuel, maintenance, modification, taxes, and title fees. My once thought to be sizable nest egg dwindled before my eyes, leaving me with $5K to live on for the next 2 months, barring emergencies or surprises with the shuttle. If I even got that shuttle. Were there any cheaper? A quick scan dashed my hopes, showing nothing comparable in the range or the private market. And the private market I knew was even worse. They were a high demand item. Suddenly, my best hopes of escape, and perhaps my last, rode on one pony. I eagerly tapped the button to schedule an inquiry for sale. No pressure. With that crisis now simmering on the back burner, another more pressing concern presented itself. Where was I going to go? The cabin was gone, and my friends were mainly relegated to the military. My life had been one of distant connections, with rare exception. Mom? Ha! I quickly chucked that idea. 2 months in the grass watching for hawks would be better than that. Once I had the shuttle, I could park it anywhere. I could even find an empty patch of land after I had it stocked and just exist out of it. Something the Admiral said, though, went through my mind. I checked back through the files on the cheap data tablet he had brought to ferry files and found a recertification packet. Damn. No camp out for me. I couldn't even fly the damn thing until I completed a battery of tests at a local spaceport to determine my ability to operate craft. A rock and a hard place. If I somehow didn't pass recertification, how would I get to Syntioch? What would be done then? I really didn't want to find out. A chill of fear strummed through my hindpaws and I had to recenter. Focus, Snow. One thing at a time. There will be plenty of time to freak out later. This was just more bullshit to hop through. Checking the schedule, my options soon became clear. The module was 3 weeks long. I had to provide the shuttle, and 5 cities were listed with currently active courses. San Francisco, Sydney, Tokyo, Omaha, Johannesburg, or The Hague. When they put it that way, the choice was easy. Chapter 37. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We are on final approach into San Francisco International Spaceport. It's a balmy 16 degrees. We'd like to wish you all a very happy holiday season, and a Merry Christmas if you celebrate it. Thank you for flying United Earth Space Lines. A stewardess drifted by and checked to make sure I was still belted in. A harness that buckled at my chest hung a bit heavy there, causing a vague protest from my back over the brief 2-hour jaunt through security and terminals on my way back to good old North America, Sector 2. Of all the cities I had to choose from on my packet, this was the one most familiar. It also reminded me of her. If I was to be marooned here for 2 months, it seemed better to dwell where my ghosts would be comfortable. A woman sat rigidly in the seat next to me, staring straight ahead, having hardly said a word the entire flight. Upon emerging from the tank, it seemed the world had gone to sudden and great lengths to show me how different my reality now was. The city grew larger from my perch as I gazed out the window, and soon there was a familiar thud and we were down. The craft alighted on its pad as the spaceway rolled up to the hatch, attaching with the familiar sound of 2 locking bolts. The lights drew up in the cabin, and everyone rose. I remained in my seat, content to wait until the transport had cleared a bit. The smell of eagerness and human sweat punctuated the air in acrid tones, mixed with vague hints of both stress and fear. It contributed to my own building panic, feeling surrounded by predators, and all I wanted in that moment was out. Slowly the two-leggers filed by. "Geez, please, hurry up, people!" I fumbled with the latch of my seatbelt harness and wiggled it free. "Oh, what a cute bunny! Where's your owner?" a random woman asked and stroked my ears, ignoring my harness and human equivalent intelligence stenciled in large red and yellow letters down my side. "I was good, and they gave me my freedom papers. Snow is no longer a slave to the furless authority," I proclaimed through my collar with sarcasm, and she jerked back in surprise. I'm sorry," she gasped and quickly made her way off the craft. The stewardess, chuckling to herself, quickly came to check on me. "Everything all right, miss?" Everyone just seemed to naturally assume I was female now, which for me was new. Was it my species? My voice certainly sounded the part, though with focus I had some degree of control of that through my collar. It all had to do with thinking in a different tone of voice from your inner monologue. It was imperfect, but sometimes I could make it work. And for my next trick. "Yes, I'm fine, thank you. Just with my size, it's better to avoid the stomping feet." I was learning quickly to watch where I stepped because no one was watching out for me. With the craft empty, I finally made my way out, bounding down the corridor, the flight crew following just behind. My world opened out onto the spaceport concourse. "Bunny!" I heard a young girl called out. Forget this. I took off on a run down the concourse, not too fast, but enough to avoid people. Using my size and reflexes to move around quickly and efficiently, was nearing the checkpoint up ahead when a guard yelled for me to slow down. Begrudgingly, I slowed to a hop. "Sorry," I replied. My induction into my new reality continued as I made my way onto the escalator for the final ride up to the platform for the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, or BART. A banner was strung up in the terminal that read, "BART, 1972 to 2072, celebrating 100 years." Moving up to the turnstile, I found I couldn't reach the scanner with my tablet without hopping. My forelegs only moved so far. An attendant approached and helped me scan through. "Move it, freak!" A fellow passenger bumped into me rudely as I went to thank the attendant. I'd been out of the hospital 4 hours, and already it felt like a long day. Snow is 100% sass and about 20% smartass and rage bundled up into a small furry form. It means I'm not too good at math, but it, I think, accurately describes her personality. She's a very interesting mix. And the events of her genesis contributed to that, on top of the fact of, latent elements of John's personality. John was very angry, as we've talked about and seen in the work. When Joyce died and Snow became Snow, it kind of mutated into this sarcastic, kind of sour, curmudgeonly nature, demeanor. Having fun? Chapter 38. Water break. Flight recertification as amorphic is a giant pain in the ass. I was quickly working my way through my first week. Reflex checks and physicals ad nauseum. It was all hustle and bustle. One thing had slipped through the cracks, and I was now paying for it in a new kind of agony. I had forgotten my flea treatment. I was infested at the moment, and itching like mad. It was costing me one of my 3 allowed medical exemption days, but I had to take it. The little jerks were voracious and would not leave me alone. As if to punctuate the thought, an intense twinge from my ear erupted into a full and desperate need. "God, son of a bitch!" I cried, and rapidly attacked the spot with my hind paw, bringing only temporary relief. Why, Snow? Why had you forgotten your flea treatment? Desperate for relief, I dialed the name of an organization I found online, something I had never heard of before, called a Morphic Community Center. "MCC, San Francisco," a bored woman of indeterminate age reported in over the line. "Yes, I understand that you help Morphics connect with local services?" I asked, trying to sound polite, ignoring the 4 new itches that had blossomed to full awareness. God help me, I was ready to shave off my fur. "Just a moment," she responded. Easy for you to say. I'm the one being eaten alive. "Yes, this is Bill. I'm an outreach coordinator. How can I help you?" he asked. Hi, Bill. This is really embarrassing, but I missed a flea treatment, and well, I'm dying here," I confessed to the sound of a muffled chuckle over the line. "I'm sorry, miss. It's just the same thing happened to our director last week," he excused. "It's fine. Just help me, please," I replied with unintended urgency. "Sending the details to your tablet now," he informed. There was a quick vibration confirming something new had arrived. "I think it just came in," I replied. "Good luck. If you need us, we're here. Support group is every Wednesday at 9. I sent the address with the groomer. The line clicked. Did he just say groomer? Another inch sent me into a scratching overdrive. "Okay, groomer, sounds great." Tapping the number in the packet, my tablet soon connected me. "Paula's Pretty Pets." An older woman's voice poured over the phone like rich molasses. This was humiliating. "Hi, I'm a Morphic client and was referred to you by the Resource Center," I began. "Oh, that's my other business, sweetie. All Morphic products, all certified, no pet stuff guaranteed. Do you like the name Fuzzcuts?" "I can't decide," she asked, her mind drifting from appointments. I had only one thing on my mind. "I have fleas. Soonest appointment. Bonus for today." The urgent tones from my caller seemed to snap her to focus. "Oh, you poor thing. That must be simply awful. You just come right in and I'll get you worked out." Thank heavens for kind humans. Having no recourse and feeling like a plague bearer, I rode the BART for 30 minutes there. Grateful it was not peak hours. Being 10 in the morning, it was sparse enough that I could avoid people. The constant scratching seemed to communicate enough for them to stay away. In that moment I was grateful for my harness, vague fears of animal control running through my mind like waking nightmare. Finally the train announced Berkeley, and I eagerly hopped off, stopping only to get my bearings and check my tablet for the next direction. It maneuvered me into a neighborhood, finally coming to a house that was painted a deep royal blue, with a sign hanging off a side entrance proclaiming Paula's Pretty Pets. The sense of humiliation returned as I skulked up the driveway and used my hind paw to thump the door in my approximation of a knock. An older woman in her mid-60s popped her head out and looked left and right before noticing me. "Oh, you must be Snow. You poor dear. Right this way." She ushered me in and was suddenly all business. "Need help with your harness?" she asked. "Yes, please," I replied. I wiggled free, and she held it with 2 fingers at a distance and walked off towards a room labeled laundry. "All right, miss, head down the hall on your left and there's a bathroom set up for Morphics. I set the product you will need on the rim." Thank God! I was grateful I could handle this part myself. I handed over my tablet and authorized payment, including a hefty tip, then moved down the hall. It was a normal tub, with a lever faucet, easy to manipulate. Reading the directions, the product worked like a bubble bath. Sorry, guys. That could be nice. The twitching itches returned, and I eagerly ran the hot bath, filling the dosage cup according to instructions. Using the lip of the tub as my platform to hold the cup, I carefully tipped the bottle with my forepaws before grasping it with both and holding it under the faucet. It fluffed up into a bubbly froth, but it had very little scent, something I was incredibly grateful for. Sliding into the hot water, I dunked my muzzle, causing me to cough. Righting myself, sitting on my hind paws, I dunked my head a few times and then set to groom, before taking time just to soak as indicated. Die, you blood-sucking bastards, die, I said to myself, sans voice collar. Tiny black dots began to populate the top of the water. Gross. Still, the water was warming and relaxing, taking all the stress out of weary muscles. All the tightness from the stress I had been carrying seemed to slough away some as I drifted into palpable relief. The water seemed suddenly colder, and there was a knock at the door. "Miss?" I perked up and set the tub to drain, reaching for my voice collar with wet paws, pulling it by its dangling band from the counter and pressing its box to my neck. Focus. "Yeah, fell asleep. Rinsing now," I reported. There was a distant chuckle through the door. The nap was nice. It had been a night without sleep. "Get finished up, dear. Just checking in," she replied. I think I liked Paula. A quick rinse under the pull-chain showerhead with surprising water pressure soon had fur feeling not just clean, but the skin underneath scrubbed. It even stung a bit, but there were no more itches. According to the label, I was now good for 6 months. Freedom. Nosing into a towel set on a short rack, I pushed into it and nuzzled up against it between me and the wall, working the water out of my fur as best I could with a satisfied grunt. Seemed rude to shake, though I greatly wished to. The trimmer kept moving through my fur almost like a sneeze, and I suppressed the instinct. Pulling the lever-handled door, I still looked half-drowned upon emerging. "You know, you paid for it. Might as well let me do a blow-dry and brush," she said as my thick wet fur made me feel deeply chilled. "It sounds grand, actually," I replied, and she guided me to a room that looked like any stylist room, except for a stainless steel work table in the center with a small stool next to it, instead of a chair. "Here, hop up and I can work," she said. The warm rivulets of current that worked their way through my fur from the dryer soon provided ample comfort, and I sagged. It was turning out to be such a nice day. "So you're new in the area? Moving in?" she asked, making idle conversation. "Just here for a few months, heading off into deep space," I replied, as if that was an everyday thing. "That sounds adventurous. Just you?" she continued. "I was going to go with a friend, but they passed," I explained, trying to keep a safe distance from the past. "Something like that happened to me too, sweetie. My Gerald. He died on the Enterprise during the atomic apocalypse." She began to brush my fur now, and my mind interpreted it as grooming, which only relaxed me further. "I'm sorry for your loss," I replied. "Oh, that was well over 40 years ago now. It's a new world, and I have a new life. I miss him every day, but I'd like to think he's proud of me. You'll make it too, sweetie. You'll see." In that moment I knew I liked her immensely. "Thank you," I replied, feeling awkward at the sudden connection. "So how'd you get the fleas? That sounds just awful," she said, switching subjects deftly. You could see why she was branching out from pets. She was sorely wasted there. "You don't know the half of it. I think I got them from my hotel. The Sunset Villa Royale was best classified as a dive. Still, it was in my budget, $1,500 for 2 months. The joys of living in San Francisco." "You know, you're a good tipper and you seem nice. I've got a room in the back I could rent out for a couple months. Not cheap, though. 1,000 credits," she said. "What's the catch?" I pushed. "Sometimes I get chatty and sometimes it gets busy up front, which means noise during the day," she admitted. It was better than fleas. An image of them somehow infesting my shuttle and joining me on Sentiac quickly helped me make the decision. "I think I can work with that," I replied. Chapter 39. Humanity isn't all that bad. I'm not the biggest fan of the human race. I'm often very misanthropic. But that being said, if you judge an individual by the collective actions of a species or a culture, you're not really judging the individual, are you? It's okay to be wary of people. It's okay to feel negative, I think, about the human race as a whole. But you can't let yourself descend into blind and universal hatred. Because everyone, at the end of the day, is an individual. And one of the most fascistic concepts out there, by fascistic I mean quite literally Nazi, is collective guilt. Collective guilt is one of the things that I honestly feel is holding us back as a culture. The idea that because you are of a certain race, a certain gender, or a certain whatever, automatically guilty for the sins of people that you've never known or been connected to by anything other than an arbitrary definition like the color of your skin, or once again your gender or sexuality, or whatever. People are people, be they human or otters or hares or purple Gila monsters. And you have to take people on the one-to-one basis, or you're doing them and yourself and just the general ideas of justice and decency a huge disservice. There is no honor in judging a person by things that they cannot control. Paula is a human. She's a human just like Snow is a hare. Even when John was in a human form, he was still a hare. He was still Snow. It was just harder to see. Paula has always been a human. You might as well judge her for being 5'1". Might as well judge her because she's a little overweight. It's just a detail, unless she makes it a feature of bigotry or kindness or whatever. I firmly believe, even with my negative feelings I often feel about the human race as a whole, that if you don't meet people where they are, you're just perpetuating a cycle of hatred and violence that's ultimately going to kill us all and hold us back from things like the farthest star, like the frontier. Okay, let's do one more chapter and then let's wrap it up for a day because I've been talking a lot. Yep. As a whole, people suck, but a person can be extraordinary. You're a big Jim Butcher fan, eh, Finley? Because I sure as heck am. It's one of the things I like about Jim Butcher is that his first book was good, but it was his first book. He's gotten so much better as he's gone on. And as a writer, I love first works that are like that because it's so undeniably honest. You read and you see stuff there that's special. You decide to take a chance and to keep going, and you see their storytelling evolve along with their characters and their way of building worlds. And it's very inspiring. And in a way, I feel very much like my work is the same. I think in a lot of ways, Exiles is probably my weakest of my published works. But it was also my first work, and like I tell people, if I'm lucky, Exile will always be the worst thing I've ever written. Because that just means that you get better with each release, right? You know, I mean, if Exile's Return is my first book, which it is, and it's the worst thing I've ever written, then that means everything I've written after Exiles is an improvement, which is growth. And that's what I aspire to. Oh man, Peace Talks is coming out in July. I'm going to be in the middle of the Pacific Crest Trail in July. And when I get to a place that has Wi-Fi signal, I am connecting. I am spending the power on my phone just so I can download it and read it in my tent at night. I am so jazzed for Peace Talks because he had to go through hell to write it. I don't know if you've been keeping up with what's going on in his life, but he's had some real bad things that happened that delayed his normal production schedule, which I can totally understand. My normal production goals are to write 6 novel-length manuscripts a year. Last year, I wrote 3 novel-length manuscripts and only wrote 2 to full completion. Starfall just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's almost to 85,000 words now, and we're still in the middle of the story. It's quite likely that it's going to be my first like 150, 200,000 word book. And I don't even know if it's going to be done by the time I set out on the trail. Yeah, definitely. Well, Jim Butcher is one of those people where he doesn't just stereotype a culture, he actually writes a lot from the perspective of the culture. You know, the way that he did werewolves was quite powerful. Things like that. All right, let's do chapter 39 and let's wrap it up for the week. We'll do a little bit more chatting and we'll see where we go from there. My room rental had another drawback. Long commute time, 1 hour each way. It necessitated another 15-credit purchase. A new patch now occupied my harness, proclaiming in capital letters down my back, "Do not pet." At best, it was only partially successful. Most humans do not believe rules apply to them. The things you have to get accustomed to when you change your species. I sighed, settling down into my seat, feeling that I had lucked out to get one. I gazed out the window. Just a few more days of this and I'd have my license back. If everything went well, I'd be the proud owner of a shuttle by the end of the week. No more public transportation. This was officially cutting it close. As of this week, I had one last month on Earth. An appointment as cargo awaited me on the Masamune. The special toned wail of the train against the tracks told me through blinding rivulets of sonic pain that we were nearing the spaceport, and my stop. The train was not built to consider logomorphic ears, or anyone else's for that matter. A dashing man in a suit walked up to the seat and sat down across from me. "Would you like a carrot?" he asked. "Piss off," I replied. "You don't have to be like that," he continued. "Just wanted to tell you about Jesus." "No, thank you, and in the future you might have better luck if it's bananas, but try some respect first. Seriously." The car glided to a halt and I quickly hopped off, leaving the man behind. Last week, I reminded myself, diverting for the elevator to take me away from the passenger level. Today's roster: visual acuity, peripheral vision, and reaction tests. The vision test worried me. Traditionally, my kind has terrible eyesight by human standard, but I felt that I saw fine. I think I still saw colors, much the same as I once remembered, if a touch more muted. My peripheral vision, by human standards, was amazing. It was a hair, but elements of my old life still functioned as legacy. It was the reason I was 94% integrated and not 97 or 99%. Hours of left paw, right paw, read the screen followed, and my brain ached as my eyes burned by the end of the long day. Still I had passed. Another box checked. Progress. Hopping towards home, a chime from my pouch indicated that my tablet wanted my attention. I slid off to the side of the sidewalk and worked it out of its hiding spot. It was a message confirming my shuttle appointment. A scent of a predator. Dog drifted by on the wind, drawing me to look around for my distraction. Oh, shit. Someone was walking their German Shepherd and was closing in on me. They too were distracted, walking forward while glancing down at their tablet as the dog strained the leash. Stupid Snow. That was stupid, letting yourself get distracted like that. The leash went taut, and she got yanked forward. It was only by sheer luck that she had an actual grip that this did not devolve into a chase. I launched back reflexively. The dog snarled and growled, effectively leaving me pinned between her and the fence. I am not food, I protested, fear driving me to full panic. She wrestled with the dog, but it struggled, trying to get at me. In panic, I mule-kicked it with both my hind paws. It yelped and slunk behind her. She was only trying to play, she scolded. Try being my size, lady. Call the cops. I'll wait, I replied, desperately hoping she wouldn't call my bluff. Bitch, she spat before tugging the leash. Come on, Coco. She slunk off as my heartbeat began to debate normalizing at twice the usual rhythm. Weary from the sudden tension, I made my way towards home. Another day on Earth. All right. Chapter 40. I think that's a really good place to call it. It's a good breaking point. Of course, you are my audience, and I want you to leave feeling happy. Channeling Andropop a little bit there. I am really looking forward to this fanfic too. The idea of the Doctor meeting Joyce. I think the Doctor is going to like Joyce. That's my thinking. There you go. Because Joyce is hopeful, and the Doctor, while a tragic figure, is a lot about hope. Well, luckily we now have, I think, 4 episodes. Cash, you can go back through the links that you have, Allie, and I could read to you all day long. Yeah, I want to. Which Doctor are we? Are we like the Tenant Doctor? Are we the Matt Smith? I mean, 9th, 10th, 11th? Doctor of War? But inquiring minds want to know. Oh, wow! Finley, that is an unpopular opinion for a lot of Doctor Who fans, but you and I have that in common. The 9th Doctor was my first Doctor, and I really liked what he brought, the actor that played him, to that role. He was so subdued compared to many of the other Doctors. He, to me, reminded me a lot of, there were echoes of like the first in him. And I also really like the storyline, Bad Wolf, and all of that. It's really great. 9 truly is always going to be my favorite, and he was also my first. Yes, that's the leather jacket Doctor. Now, I think Tennant. Well, 9 is my favorite. I think Tennant was probably one of the more perfect portrayals of Doctor Who as Doctor Who that we've ever gotten. I honestly think that 10, David Tennant, really brought something special to the role. And I don't know if that will ever be paralleled. I think he's always going to be iconic as 10. But there's something about 9. And that's okay. I've not been a fan of the more recent ones. I really think that I really feel like the tone of the show changed dramatically when we shifted to Capaldi and then went forward to the Lady Doctor that we have now. Um, I can't say that it's terrible. It's just there's something that's not there. And I really hope that you guys won't be upset with me for saying that, because it's like I don't have anything against the new ones. It's just something doesn't resonate with me. I don't know if it's the writing or what. Yes, Vincent Van Gogh episode. That's writing goals. Really, really have. You know, with Tenet especially and number 9, there was such an emphasis on mystery and hope. And that even continued through Matt Smith with the astronaut and, the diner and, those of you that have seen will understand when I'm throwing out the ood. All of those. But I really think that we've lost something as we've gotten away from the mystery and the exhortation of hope. One of the more cheesy storylines with Tenet that I also thought was one of the most powerful, which is an interesting balance, was when the Master basically takes over Earth again, and it looks like Tenet is beaten, and it is the hope, it is the belief in the Doctor that saves the world. Bit of a spoiler alert. But I mean, it underscores the power of hope. Anyway, guys, it's about 1:30. Do we have yeah, and that's the thing. It was always about the Doctor and the greater universe. The Doctor was never fully the centerpiece. But yeah, questions, comments, concerns. Now is the death threat hour. I don't know why I like to make jokes about that. Probably because I've had people that told me that, I'm absolutely evil for the way that I did Dawnbreak. And all of that. It's amazing. I think Dawnbreak is probably one of the best things I've ever written, but it's also the most polarizing. Guys, I look forward to this every week. I'm going to really miss this when I'm on the trail. I was just thinking about that. Keep an eye on the patron space and for announcements. There's always the possibility I might get a chance to at least pop up and check in. Yeah, this was wonderful, I feel. You guys really, really make this something special for me. Thank you. And Finley, you made it to the end of the stream. Hour and a half. Woot woot. Alright, guys. You're the best. We'll see you this time next week. Might have a couple surprises. We'll have to see. And until next week, onward towards the farthest star. And I'm out.